Hello everyone, and welcome to Wellness Wednesday. I have a few questions. The biggest question I've had this past few days is, what do I think of the latest news about the 90% effective vaccine? So I'll share my own personal views, because I'm not a medical doctor giving you a medical view, and I have done some reading around this, and I will be putting my thoughts to this. Also had some questions about muscle twitching, and a few have asked me about sort of menopause, perimenopause, and HRT. So I'm actually going to start with things in sort of middle order. So muscle twitching. There are lots of different forms of muscle twitching. Lots of different causes of muscle twitching. So, I mean, you could be talking about just little twitches in the eye, fingers, muscle spasms, cramps as well. But there are multiple causes. The most common causes of all kinds of muscle twitches and cramps is basically nutritional electrolyte deficiencies or imbalances. So calcium, magnesium, potassium, not getting enough of them normally. Sodium as well. Sometimes it can be sort of too much of one, not enough of another, but it's usually a lack that's causing some problems. So look at your diet. Are you eating a varied diet full of lots of fruits and nuts and seeds and berries? And then you can take a multivitamin mineral as well, and that may sort it out. But you may need a deeper look. You may need an electrolyte drink. But then it can be things like stress is another big cause of twitches as well, because stress uses up certain B vitamins, it can stop you turning off the stress reflexes in the body. And then there are sort of more serious causes as well, more serious neurological causes. So first of all, clean up your diet. If it's something that's happening a lot, it's worth going to your doctor to start getting lab tests and things done sooner rather than later, just in case there is something more serious than some kind of nutritional deficiency or some kind of stress response. HRT, hormone replacement therapy, menopause, perimenopause. Strictly speaking, menopause basically means after you've actually been through the change and you haven't had menstruation for 12 months. So it should mean, you're over all the symptoms and all over the problems. Perimenopause is the phase that you're going through when things are starting to go not quite right and all the symptoms of the big change start happening. And very often those causes are happening because of various things all happening at the same time, and revealing nutritional deficiencies, liver problems, detoxification issues, or too many various toxins, progesterone falling faster than estrogen, because there are so many xenoestrogens in our diet now. So even though estrogen falls, progesterone is falling much faster, and that can be the cause of the problems. Estrogen is also a great masker of symptoms of other problems. So as your estrogen level falls, all these other things start coming to the surface that you just never noticed before, because estrogen is so good at making you feel good. So there are lots of different causes in it, and your genetics, stress, environment, are you exercising enough, all kinds of things. What other health conditions are going on. And in some cases, it's like you can try doing all the healthy living stuff and it's just not enough. And you do need some kind of hormone replacement therapy. The first line is always going to be trying to get human equivalent hormones, as natural as possible, bioidentical hormones. There you go. So identical to the ones that are made inside us. Okay, or you as a lady. And there's a lot of the hormones that are used in oral contraceptive pills and lots of the HRT is actually synthetic, and that can wreak havoc on the system later on in life. And in fact, there is increased risks of certain, I think, heart disease and cancers with prolonged HRT. So my view on HRT is basically, look, if you're trying everything you can and your life is just not good, and HRT makes everything feel better, then it's great to use while you try and get all the underlying causes fixed, so you can then come off the HRT. So the idea is to be on the smallest effective dose for the shortest time possible. Okay, so, and yeah, if you are looking for help or need help with that, then reach out. Oh, and hello, Becky Evans, I've just seen on Facebook. So, what do I think of the vaccine? That's the big question today. Now, so the vaccine is from Pfizer, and we know that they've enrolled, this is all from the Pfizer website, they have enrolled 43,538 participants so far, of which 38,955 of them have sort of been through the actual process. And of that, even though it's not actually on the website, but they do actually mention that it's placebo controlled. So you would imagine that half of that number didn't have the vaccine and the other half did. So let's round it up to 39,000, because it's an easier bit of maths to do. So out of 39,000, 19,500 have received 2 doses of the vaccine, and 19,500 didn't receive the vaccine, but some kind of placebo, and that may have been nothing. Basically, out of the entire, I'm going to say 39,000, 94 of them actually got COVID-19, actually properly confirmed COVID-19. And so that's basically 0.25%. Okay, so this isn't going on the PCR test or anything like this. This is actually properly diagnosing COVID-19. And so out of 40, well, I'm just saying 39,000 people, only 94, so that's 0.25% of a population, okay, are going to get COVID-19. 0.25%. Okay, so that's not even how many people are going to die from it. That's 0.25% are going to get proper COVID-19 actually diagnosed. So now, and what they're saying is that it's 90% effective, this vaccine. So basically, so you've got 94 people out of 39,000 got the virus, and 90% of that 94 or thereabouts were in the placebo group. Okay, and only 10% were in the vaccinated group. So looking at those numbers, you've got to think that, okay, so there's 9 people who were vaccinated actually ended up getting COVID-19, and there's 85 people who were in the other group. Like I say, so 95 plus 9 equals 94. So, without the exact figures, you just got to go on those rough numbers. So out of 19,500 people, so for every 19,500 people, 85 people are going to get COVID-19. So let's have a look at that number. So it's 85 divided by 19,500. 19,500 equals, okay, and then times 100, because I completely forgot to do that the other day. So that's 0.4%. So it's basically about, without vaccination, we can expect between 0.4 and 0.5%, I think I've got it right this time, of the population will get COVID-19. But that's decreased to a much smaller amount when you have the vaccine. So that's great. So we know that the vaccine is decreasing it. But how many people have to be treated to decrease that? So we actually have a look at how many people need to be treated. So basically, so if 85 people are going to get it in every 19,500, but 90% of them don't get it because of the vaccine, it basically means that 250 people have to receive the vaccine for one person to benefit. Okay, and this is in healthy individuals. Okay, so these are basically healthy young individuals from multiple ethnic backgrounds. Okay, so 250 healthy people have to be vaccinated for one person to actually get a benefit, because of the fact of, well, basically how few people actually get COVID-19. Now, this is where the problems start, because what we know is that the average age of death from COVID-19 is 82. Okay, and most of these people have comorbidities as well. And we know that as you age, your chances of actually responding to a vaccine decrease, and the more other illnesses you have, your chances of responding to a vaccine decrease. In fact, the numbers are, so for instance, various vaccines that are sort of about 70% effective. I've got some of the numbers here. Yeah, so a vaccine that may be sort of 70 to 80% effective in young, healthy individuals may be as little as only 10 to 30% effective in those over 80. So if we take a 90% effective vaccine and we decrease it to just a third of its effectiveness, okay, but let's be generous, okay, because this does seem to be a particularly, seems to be effective vaccine. Let's say it's half. Okay, so that basically means at least 500 people have to be vaccinated in order for one person to not get COVID-19. This is the vulnerable population. But it may actually be as much as, it may be just 750, it may be 1,000 people over the age of 80 have to be actually vaccinated for one person to benefit. But so what we're guessing at is that basically between 10% and at most 45% of the elderly population are going to be protected by the vaccine. What we don't know yet is the vaccine going to decrease the death rate? So looking at the numbers, okay, and looking at what we know about vaccines, it's likely that this vaccine is going to perhaps only be about 45% at most effective, more likely 30% at most effective, okay, against decreasing cases, which is not as good as giving a single dose of 80,000 international units of vitamin D3. We already know that a single dose of 80,000 units of vitamin D3 will decrease the death rate of COVID by 50% in the over 80s, which is massive, which is huge, but that's not being sung from the rooftops. We also know that COVID-19 seems to be much more related to nutritional deficiencies and then much more prone to being cured by actually giving nutrients than pretty much any other virus so far discovered. We know that when you start giving them vitamin D, actually injections of vitamin D seems to be 98 to 100% effective in decreasing death, which is again far better than this vaccine and far safer. Well, so far they haven't said there's any problems. So this still doesn't come close to vitamin D. It's certainly much more expensive than vitamin D. It's certainly far harder to administer than vitamin D. We also know that selenium deficiency, zinc deficiency, glutathione deficiency all play a role, and these things can all be administered easily in hospital. Plus, they're much, much cheaper to actually give out and administer than the vaccine. So I'm not against the vaccine. I just think it's a very, very, very expensive way of basically doing what can be done. Okay, so I hope that is of use to everybody. And please, you know, I'm not saying don't vaccinate. I'm just saying it's a very, very expensive way to do something that is not as effective as something that's already available. Oh, this is the other thing I want to say about the vaccine is the protection happens after, it takes about 28 days and 2 doses. Okay, so 2 doses of vaccine, 28 days. Vitamin D3 is effective the moment you give it, and even just 1 dose seems to be as effective as 2 doses of the vaccine. And it can be given now, and it's effective straight away. And if someone has got COVID, the vaccine's not really bad, the vaccine's probably not going to do anything, but an injection of vitamin D seems to actually help there and then and save somebody's life. So I'm still really, really up for seeing some more studies on vitamin D3 done in hospitals, because I still believe, okay, that we don't have to wait for this vaccine. I believe this can all be over in the next week if hospitals just started injecting vitamin D3, maybe starting using N-acetylcysteine. Another study has just been shown how effective that is. Giving some selenium, maybe giving some B vitamins, some magnesium, doing the stuff that's already been shown to work, that's effective and very, very cheap and usable now. So yeah, that's my thoughts. Thank you very much. I hope you're all awesome. Be very, very well.